Today's topic is note making, and this is a topic that will be covered in 11th standard as well as 12th standard. The weightage of marks for both the classes for the same topic varies, and we'll be discussing about that also in the slides that are about to be displayed. So, what is note making? When you look at note making, the first thing that comes to your mind is maybe it refers to the notes that are to be taken in class when a teacher is teaching, or it is maybe referring to maybe when I am self studying, there's a possibility I want to make my own notes. So, what happens is you have a certain image of note making in your mind, and you start perceiving the topic with that image in your mind. Well, to some extent, it is correct because you are taking notes. But when it comes to taking notes for 11th and 12th standard, there is a particular format that has to be followed. And apart from that, it also has to have certain bifurcations that have to be kept in mind. So let's understand theoretically first what is note making, and then I'll be telling you about what is the kind of question that comes in the exam and how do we need to go about that. So note making is a way of recording important details from a source. And for you, my dear students, it's a passage, that source is a passage of 550 to 600 words in length. In note making, the writer records the essence of the information, and it helps us to understand, to clarify our thinking. And note making saves a lot of time by going through the notes made, especially during exams. And one can get a glimpse of a lot of information from a short note itself. So, what does a note making question look like? In the exam paper, this is how it will appear. You will have a passage that would be of some 500 words, and after that passage you will be asked to answer two questions. The first question would be where you would be required to make some notes and points only with abbreviations, and the second question would be to make a summary of the passage in not more than 80 words. So this is the interface of the question. That is how it would appear in your question paper. Now, how many marks does note making carry in 11th standard and in 12th standard? Because this is a question that will appear in both the classes. So I would like you to keep all this in mind and see that in 11th standard it is for 8 marks, and in 12th standard it is for 10 marks. This is the bifurcation of the marks given. The heading is for 1 mark. The abbreviation or the key box or contraction is for 1 mark. You have to give minimum 4, but I would suggest write only 4. We'll go into that detail in the upcoming slides. And the notes with the subheadings are to be for 3 marks. Fine. So 3 plus 1, 4 plus 1, 5. That is the division of marks when it comes to the note making part. Now, when it is class 11, the summary is for 3 marks. That is why it makes it 8 marks. And in class 12, the notes you make are of the same marks, but the marks for the summary are 5. That's why it makes it 10 marks for class 12. The standard word limit for any summary is 80 words. So how would the notes look like? The notes would look like this when you have answered them. We will go on to further details about the placement of the content in the slides that are to follow. And how would the summary look like, or how many words should be in a summary? The details are given here. The words allowed to be used are 80, and the students are required to write the summary in a paragraph using main points they have listed in the notes. Complete sentences are used over here. That has been specifically mentioned here because in note making we do not use complete sentences, we use only phrases. But when it comes to summaries, we are supposed to write complete sentences. They are logically and cohesively linked together with the help of suitable linkers. We are not supposed to use abbreviations and symbols in summary writing. Abbreviations and symbols are used while we write down the notes, and they are also written in a separate key box so that we can refer to them later. Details of abbreviations and symbols will be given in the slides that are to follow. The rule of magic number 4. This is a rule I have been using to teach my students how to write down effective notes. And I have seen that this has assisted my dear students in learning the knack of writing notes in a very, very impressive manner. So the rule of magic number 4 says, let the heading not be more than 4 words. And if you really ask me, I would prefer 1 or 2 words. So we can say let the heading be maximum 4 words. When it comes to writing down the notes, we have to write down in phrases and not in full sentences. Again, maximum number of main points should be 4. The maximum number of subpoints should be 4, and maximum 4 sub-subpoints. Here I would like to make a mention. If you plan to write down sub-subpoints only, then do so. It is not at all compulsory. Again, when you make the key box is a box where you write down the abbreviations you have made for certain lengthy words which are reoccurring while writing down the notes. So even those abbreviations or keywords that you write in the key box should not exceed the number 4. It doesn't mean that if you write more than 4, it would be incorrect format. I would like to make a special mention here, children, that this is to ensure that you do not spend unnecessarily more time on this one question of note making. There is a tendency students tend to spend more time in answering this particular question. So this is one way I have found to limit the time you spend on the answering this. So I hope this is a rule that would help you write notes effectively. So how should your notes look like? These are how your notes should look like in your answer sheet. You can see the indentation here. You can see the placement of the sub-points and the placement of the sub-points. You may note that it is not necessary for you to have sub-points for every sub-point. Under the first main point, I have written two sub points for the third sub point of the first main point. Whereas in the second main point, I have given only one sub point to the fourth sub point of the second main point. See the indentation. Indentation means the space you leave from the margin. That plays an important role, and this becomes a part of the format. I have deliberately left a line here. I have left a line after every main point and before every main point. I have left a line even after the heading. Leaving a line is not a part of the format. You leave lines so that the whole answer looks neat and presentable. So it will, I would not say may, but it will definitely fetch you more marks. So if you look at the format and the placement of notes, how to number them, we can see this is the heading. This is the place for the main point. These are the sub points, and the sub points, instead of mentioning them as 1.1, they have been mentioned as A, B, C, and the sub point of C sub point has been mentioned as 1 and 2 small Roman numbers. So this is also one of the ways to go about it, and on the next slide you'll see another way we can number the notes we prepare. Now if you look at this page, you can see there are other options. You write on 1A, 1, 2, it can be the other way around, or you can write 1, 1.2, 1.2, 2, 2.1, 2.2, or the sub point of 2.2 as 2.2.1. I love this way of writing down the points, but you can pick up and choose any one you wish to. So now how should your key box look like? If you really ask me, a key box has to look like a key box, but the content inside must be very carefully selected. It always has to be in a box because the name is key box, obviously, and the key portion of the notes show the various codes or the symbols that you have used to avoid writing the full forms of those words. And very important, you need to underline the keywords used. Now here the magic number 4 should have been applied, but remember, what does magic number 4 say? It says minimum number 4, but I would say write down maximum number 4 for keywords, because actually it will otherwise consume a lot of your time, and that's the reason I kind of introduced the rule of magic number 4. So now let us see what kind of a question comes. So this is a passage that is given to you, and the first question says, make notes on the passage in any suitable format using abbreviations wherever necessary and give a suitable title. And the second one says, make a summary of the passage. Well, we will go through how we actually need to learn how to write down the notes. So you will follow these steps, read the passage very carefully, and when you're doing that, keep a pencil intact. But that pencil mark should be very, very light, because in 11th you may be allowed to use it, but in 12th standard you are not allowed to use the pencil or a pen on your question paper. So try maybe to develop a habit in which you do not have to use the pencil, but let's be smart enough and try to use it so lightly that it is not visible. So try to get the theme and the subject of the passage. You can ask yourself, what is this passage about? Usually you get that answer in the very first two paragraphs of that passage. That will help you provide the gist of the passage. That means culminate it into one small summary. And then read very carefully. You can identify the main ideas and the supporting details. You need to make notes of the main ideas under headings. That is the main point, and the subpoints and the sub-subpoints. So use a proper layout or a format. As I told you, you have to indent it. Okay, it has to have a proper sequence. It has to be in a tabular form. It has to be in a flow chart if required. But these are the ones which we would not prefer. Okay, it is better you follow indented linear form or sequential form. And the next is use recognizable abbreviations wherever possible. Don't worry, students, on the next few slides, we are going to actually find and write down the notes of this paragraph so that you, after you see this PPT and this video, you will be very, very confident in making notes. So I'm assuming you have read the passage, and the time allowed would be maximum 10 minutes to read the passage, and try to keep in mind the directions given on the previous slide. So if we look at the passage, it is definitely about decorating one's home, and we have highlighted it into four main points. Home reflects the personality of a homeowner, the elements of decoration, plan to enjoy the house, and also the fourth main point is choice of colors. So let us see, if we look at the personality of a homeowner, what is it that he sees? There has to be unity and harmony between the rooms. It can't be different, suddenly different and bizarre. There has to be color and styling that should be matching, and there has to be a lot of satisfaction. The elements of decoration have to be there. There should be specific color schemes that can be reflected in the draperies, the rugs, the upholstery, etc. And you have to have a plan to enjoy your house. You have to feel wanted there, and you should feel welcomed in your own house. So you need to limit the time, effort, and money spent. You need to select furnishings which require little care, and confine hectic activities into one room. Otherwise, the whole rooms would be disaster. And it would be great if you have a hobby connected to your house. Then the choice of colors, which colors should predominate, which uh, colors you can experiment with, and then the calm colors can be for restfulness, and intense colors can be used for liveliness. So the colors should harmonize with the furniture and the draperies. So if you look at this whole passage over here, it doesn't mean that if I have to write down my first main point and its subpoints, it should be from the first paragraph. There's nothing like that. You can see that my third point comes back way back into the fifth paragraph. And you can see over here that I have not written any subpoints. So does that mean that my note making is incorrect? It is not. That is just an option. It's an option to write 4 subpoints. You can see in the first main point, there are only 2 subpoints. I've not written 4 here. In the second main point, there are only 2 subpoints. And in the third main point, there are 4. In the fourth main point, I've mentioned 4. And if you look at all these points, they have taken hardly any point from this paragraph. But does that mean that it is incorrect? No, it doesn't mean it is incorrect. There's a reason why. Because when we write down notes, my notes may differ from your notes. And what is the reason behind that? The reason is that the way I would recollect a longer passage may vary from the way you recollect it. There are certain points which may help you recollect a point from the passage, and there are certain points which may help me recollect it. So no 2 points can be same. So it doesn't matter. The point is to cover maximum number of the portion of your paragraph in your notes. I hope this point is of some help. Now let us look at the way to write a summary. So see what happens when you have written down the notes, children. You already have a gist of the whole paragraph in your mind, and it becomes very easy to write down the summary. So you can recall, if you recall, it talks about the personality, it talks about the unity a home must have in terms of the colors and the styling, the furniture's role, and the need to have a longingness for one's home, and the satisfaction to have it revolve around one hobby. So all this can easily be recollected and remembered and written down as a summary in this part of the question. So whenever we learn something, we want to know the reason why we are learning it. And since we've learned how to make notes now, we would like to know what is the need and the advantages of that. It's a skill which improves by practicing, and there are certain advantages, especially it has great importance in exams or in academic writing, which you would be doing once you graduate. And it helps you organize your points. It helps you keep the information handy because you don't want to carry lengthy literature with you everywhere. It helps you recollect and recall the past events said or heard. It helps you concentrate and understand, and it also helps you keep a permanent record. It even helps you to go through bulky documents quicker. Obviously, who's going to read those lengthy documents when you are in a hurry? And it also helps to understand the material if the notes are in your own words. There are many who can study from their own handwriting and they find it much more easier. And it helps you understand which points I must pay importance to and which points are actually just details that are supporting the main points. So, this activity will be of some use to you in your life. So, talking about the procedure of note making, that's already been told to you and we've practiced it also. You need to read the passage, underline the important sentences as I told you very cleverly, make the headings and the subheadings, write a rough note so that you can get an idea that you don't miss out any point, organize them in a logical order or a sequence for the final note, use the appropriate note making format, and do not change the idea or the message of the passage. That has to be kept intact. Now, what can be the easiest way to remember the points? And I've tried to put them all on one page. And my first point obviously would be the rule of magic number 4, as I had earlier described. You can go back to that slide and understand what is the magic number 4. And you need to avoid using long sentences in the heading or the title. Never lose the main idea of the passage. Ignore the information which is less important. You need to be very brief, clear, and specific. For that reason, I tell you, use phrases, do not use sentences at all. You have to be logical in the presentation of notes, and proper indentation is of utmost importance. Leave no spaces in between to avoid confusion. These are the spaces they are talking about within the same line, and don't include your opinion or perspective. That's very important. You cannot divert from actually what is the content of the passage. The abbreviations have to be very carefully chosen. You need to make your note more memorable by being very careful in using words that could help you recall the main passage. So now that we have understood all the tricks of making notes, I'm going to leave you at this point and allow you to go through this passage and try to write down and prepare notes on your own. Try to do that before you go on to the next slide. And even in case you do see the next slide, I would request you to switch it off and write down your notes first and then try to compare them to the next slide, because the next slide is going to contain the answers of this question, both the notes as well as the summary. So good luck, children. I hope you have understood this topic and you will practice it and effectively be able to make notes and write down the summary. And yes, this is the answer, a sample answer, I would say, to the previous paragraph. Because as I said, notes would vary from child to child. Everybody has their own way of writing notes. What may help me in recalling the whole paragraph may not help others to recall the same passage. So the keywords also will definitely vary. And here you can see the keywords have been underlined. That is something that you need to keep a note of. I hope you have understood this topic of note making and it will assist you in scoring well not only in 11th standard, but also in 12th standard. But apart from that, it's not always about marks, children. It is also about how to understand a passage. I also how to understand the main points and be able to differentiate them from the superfluous content that is given along with it. So, good luck and see you soon till the next topic to be covered.